Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
When we look at history, we find narratives of people who stood up and made a difference. Sometimes these people are well known to us, and sometimes not. This largely is dependent on how the narrative is retold, what is left in and what is omitted. In some ways, a census is a kind of societal narrative that reveals quite literally who counts. In this week's parasha, Pinchas, we see a reiteration of the census of the Israelites in the desert. It is a snapshot of who is considered important within society and who is subverted or ignored. Our most comprehensive census in the Torah is recounted at the beginning of Numbers. In fact, it's called the Book of Numbers because of the census. But the census here in Parashat Pinchas is noteworthy because it mentions the names of people who should not be counted. People who would have been counted, but their actions disqualified them from being included. This may seem a bit strange. After all, if these people won't be counted, why give their names? But we do this all the time. We tell about people who have stepped too far outside of the acceptable boundaries as warning stories from generation to generation. Think about the earliest tales that we tell our children, fairy tales even. Think about stories like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. By the end of the story, he is ignored. He is discounted. So, who is excluded in this parasha, in this telling of the census? First, Korach and his followers. Korach was a leader of the Levites, but he wanted to usurp Moses' role. He wanted to be Moses as the leader of all of the Israelites. He gathered followers and led a coup that failed in a highly dramatic incident in which he and his followers were swallowed up by the ground. As an aside, in all fairness, what we know of Korach is that he was an aggressive, self-serving, and just interested in power for power's sake person. We really wouldn't have wanted him in power, and we probably wouldn't be here had he and his followers succeeded. But still, the Torah's message is clear. He stepped too far outside of the acceptable boundaries when he tried to take power by force. Who else? Now, Nadab and Avihu. This is a tragic and puzzling story. Nadab and Avihu were two sons of Aaron, the first high priest, whose main role was to oversee the sacrificial offerings to God. Nadab and Avihu were said to have gone into the sacred tent of offering and made offerings of their own. They offered what the Torah refers to as Eish Zarah, strange fire, something different, something new. And then in a horrific turn, they are consumed by fire. The rabbis have struggled with this story over the centuries, but a main traditional interpretation is that they brought this punishment onto themselves. How so? The commentators suggest they may have been drunk, that they weren't upholding the sanctity of doing the sacrifices properly. Whatever the reason, that's a sermon for another day. They were consumed by fire. Like the story of Korach, we can read this narrative as seen as a warning tale about, once again, stepping too far outside of the acceptable boundaries. But isn't it strange? After all, Korach and his followers were already dead. Nadab and Avihu perished in flames. We wouldn't have counted them. So why mention them in the census at all? It's for the same reason that we are told to blot out the name of Amalek. We are told to remember the name of Amalek in order to blot it out. When we speak about an evil character in the Torah named Amalek, Amalek represents the embodiment of immorality. And we're told again to remember him in order to remember that evil exists. In order to blot it out, we have to first remember it. We need to remember the name of Amalek first to remember the dangers that he represents. So using a similar methodology, we carry the names of Korach, Nadab, and Avihu in order to lay out the parameters of acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. But later in this Torah portion, we see a very different paradigm that also deals with acceptable boundaries of behavior. And this is the story of the daughters of Zelophehad. The Israelites are in the desert, so close to the promised land that they begin to discuss how this land is going to be divvied up and divided. Each tribe will be appointed a portion of land to be passed on as inheritance from father to son. But a group of 5 sisters, and I always like to say their names, Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcha, and Tirzah, known as the daughters of Zelophehad, challenge the system of land division. They approach Moses and ask that the land that would have gone to their father be given to them because their father had no sons. The rabbis depict each daughter as she presented an aspect of the argument before Moses, working together, and then they are awarded the land. And moreover, the law is amended so that other daughters like them can inherit land. The text sets up a hierarchy in these 3 examples that we see with Korach, Nadab, and Abihu, who were not included in the census, but the daughters of Zelophehad were. Narratives of peoplehood and nation are filled with these kind of stories. Much of this actually has nothing to do with merit. Rather, it has to do with who is holding power, who gets to construct history, which stories are uplifted and outsized, and which are diminished, excluded, and subverted, or even forgotten. So why am I speaking about this today? We are approaching American Independence Day, the 4th of July. And we have to ask ourselves, what narratives are we recounting? In the beginning years of this country, the native population was forced into relocating into undesirable geographic areas. And with climate change, this relocation is happening yet again, as native populations find themselves living on land that is becoming less inhabitable. At the same time, as a nation of immigrants, we are still coming to terms with our diverse narratives. We are still confronting our history of slavery and racial injustice. We remain a very fractured country. Stories and narrative are at the foundation of how we understand American culture. Just as we see in the census, how we focus our narratives suggests what we value. Who do we leave out of our stories? Who do we name and then discount? Who is forgotten on the sidelines of history? And what if we were to really try to uphold all of the stories, from the stories that we don't get to hear to the stories that might feel too painful to hear, to the stories of ordinary people and their struggles? As we celebrate independence, a marking of a time of freedom and empowerment, let's search for the stories that we've missed. And let's make sure that everyone is counted, because everyone counts. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.